Today on the Social Corner.
I developed something that I call racial esteem, which is something that a lot of Black people who haven't been exposed to the greatness of their history don't have. We went through years of trying to adjust and alter ourselves in order to conform to this beauty standard, which wasn't designed for us to fit into. Be really reflective with who you are and where you are, and try and unpick some of that hardwiring and some of that trauma. You realize actually there's a lot of healing that needs to take place here.
Hello and welcome to the Social Corner. I'm Daina Anderson. My guest today is the embodiment of soulful brilliance and is passionate about unleashing her entrepreneurial influence to change the narrative around textured hair care and beauty standards. She's founder of multi-award-winning hair care brand Nylah Naturals, and more recently brought myself and the nation to tears with her successful heartfelt pitch on the people's favourite show, Dragon's Den. Kameese, welcome to the Social Corner.
Hey Daina, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. You must be so busy.
I am extremely busy. It's been crazy the past few months. Yeah, absolutely.
You were on Dragon's Den what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago? May. So how has life changed since being on the show on Dragon's Den?
There's definitely more of an awareness of who I am and what I do. The business has grown so much since being on the show. I think we're already close to smashing the targets that we set for the first year.
Amazing.
So that kind of just shows how busy we've been. We've got some exciting things coming up with some national retailers as well. So the brand is definitely growing from strength to strength, and I'm really chuffed about it because I always believed in it.
Yeah.
And I always knew obviously that my products were spectacular and no bias. But it was just that I didn't have the working capital needed to obviously maximize my visibility, but being on the show helped in that regard. So we've definitely seen an overnight change in the business.
And you know, that says to me, the demand was always there.
It was always there.
It's just the spotlight, the kind of, not even just the spotlight, but the support behind it's needed.
Well, we have to take into consideration that the Black hair care market is a multi-billion-pound market internationally, and our demands as consumers, has changed. So we're no longer seeking products that obviously change and alter the curl pattern of the hair. We're seeking products that maximize its own beauty and showcase the way it is. And unfortunately, the beauty industry is just catching up with that. So there's a demand for products that are obviously seek to showcase Black hair in its purest and, most beautiful form, but there's also a demand for products that are high functioning as well, and that they perform well and they have efficacy. And that's something I think that the market was lacking. So when I was looking for a product, whilst I found products that were targeted towards Black women, I also found products that were dangerously toxic. And then when I did find alternative products that were plant-based and natural, unfortunately I felt that the formulations were very basic and they weren't sophisticated in their design, so they weren't able to give me the results that I needed, especially with having type 4C hair. You really need something that's really powerful in terms of how it works. So I just basically, long story short, I decided that I was going to try and develop something that had the accumulation of things that I wanted into a product.
Now, Kameese, it's one thing to go from, I've been in the hair shop countless times. Can't find the right oil for my hair. I'm on the aisles. Me, I go to another shop. You produce a product. It's completely different. And I think that speaks to the mindset of the person. The fact that you decided to do this and to see where you are now. How long has the business actually been?
From concept? So the concept was 2011. So it's a long time. 10 years.
10 is the number of perfection.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Is it?
I think so. Completion, that's it.
Right.
And 10 years. And I can understand that journey myself, because even in my own journey, it's taken 10 years to finally feel like I turned the corner. So let's talk about the journey, you and I.
Yeah.
Did you ever get tired?
All the time. I was tired last week, tired this morning. And I think sometimes people don't understand that even the most successful entrepreneur, they go through peaks and troughs. And there are times when they have to re-motivate themselves and remind themselves why they're doing it, because, you know, success is not a linear journey. We all know that. There's a lot of bumps in the road, and it's when you hit that bumps that you really have to dig deep and remind yourself why you're doing it. Even now, I'm going through challenges in the business because it's growing quicker than I can keep up with. I'm trying to ensure that it doesn't implode. But I think what sets me apart in some regard is that I'm just really resilient. And I think because my daughter's name's on it, like the brand's called Nylah, I cannot let it fail.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
You know,
it's attached.
It's attached to me, and it's attached to her. You know.
Let's talk a bit about your resilience then, because that's the word you've used. You know, when people describe themselves in certain ways, it's not something that they just picked up that morning. It's built, and resilience is definitely, I call a character muscle that comes over time. Where would you say that yours has stemmed from, and how has it been built?
I think you're right in that it's a character muscle that needs to be exercised. And I think my resilience has been incremental. I can't say I'll put my finger on one thing that I think has got me to the point where I'm a lot more determined than I used to be. But I know that with my past and with my experiences, especially when you take into consideration my upbringing in the area that I was raised in, I think in order to succeed in that type of environment, you need to have a lot of determination. For me, I give a lot of credit to my mom and the way in which she raised me and the qualities that she instilled in all of her children. Watching a woman who was a single mom every day get up and do her darndest to ensure that she provided for us, not only financially, not only in terms of putting a roof over our heads, but emotionally, psychologically, mentally. I think watching her and her strengths definitely instilled in me a sense of determination and overcoming. So I credit that, I think, in hindsight now, I credit that to my mom, definitely.
Do you know, as you speak, I'm having flashbacks, and you've always spoken about your mum in that way. I remember I suppose I should give this some context, but we actually met, I don't know.
We were teenagers.
Yes. 5 years ago. No, we met when we were teenagers. We worked together.
We did.
And I remember you, and I remember always thinking, wow, confident. I remember that's how you came across to me, because you said what you said, and you said it how you felt. And for somebody, myself, who struggled with my confidence, like when I was, especially in those formative years, I looked for.
It's interesting you say
Isn't it weird how people see each
I
other?
wasn't confident as a teenager at all. So it's really interesting to see that somebody's perception of you is that you were confident. I think, it's just thrown me. As a teenager, I was struggling to find my place in the world. I experienced a lot of rejection. So there was a challenge with that rejection in terms of how that impacted the way I looked and see myself. So I had mastered the ability of projecting to some extent, a sense of presence. But I think when people really got to know me on an emotional level, they realized that actually that there was a lot of development work that I had to do and was in need of. And I think in my early 20s, I definitely embarked on that journey of development. I'm still on that journey of development, as we all are. Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel emotional talking to you.
Do you?
Yeah. Because it's, I do, my eyes are welling up.
You are.
What is happening here?
What's going on?
I don't know. Hold on a minute, guys. It's funny, you talk about projection, and I literally think back to that time and think, I would never have known that's where you were. Because in myself, I was wanting to find my voice, and I saw somebody who could use theirs.
Wow.
And it's just so funny how.
And I would say the same about you.
No, I was just
Daina.
like, she says what she's feeling. Like, she's not happy with the manager. She's telling
I would
him.
tell them.
And I was just like, okay, manager, like not saying what. And that's what I admire. I always admired that about you.
Oh, wow.
You can tell we're working with men because nobody's got me a tissue. That's a cue to get me a tissue. You can keep rolling. It's all right. I won't cut this because it's real. But that's what I admired about you.
And I think in hindsight, there's a difference that we need to understand as women with confidence and projecting a sense of aggression to mask that you actually are not confident.
Yeah.
So when I used to speak to the managers, or if I used to speak to somebody, it was kind of, okay, let me pretend, let me put this on and show them I'm not to be messed with, because if you break down this wall, if you get past what I'm putting up, you'll actually see that I'm extremely delicate and very, very vulnerable. I talk about my mum, but I also witnessed a lot of domestic violence in the home. So that really impacted me. You know, and I think when you're growing up, you don't often realize some of the hard wiring that's happening as a result of your experiences. And it's not until you stop and pause and be really reflective with who you are and where you are and try and unpick some of that hard wiring and some of that trauma, you realize actually there's a lot of healing that needs to take place here. And then through that healing stage, you can really transition into your authentic self.
At what stage did you say for sure, right, I'm going to do the work?
You'll make me cry.
It's all right, I've done it now.
I, at 24 years old, went through a traumatic experience. I'll just leave it there. And that trauma put me in a place where I was blaming the world. And I had an epiphany during one of the moments where I would sit down and project the anger and the resentment that I felt towards the person who I call my perpetrator. And I then thought to myself, well, what did you do to attract that? And though I don't believe in victim blaming, I think it's really important that you also take into consideration what energy you're putting out, because some energy attracts energy. I really believe that. So I decided that I would need to go through a journey of reformatting my energy in order to attract the type of quality of life that I wanted and that I thought that I deserved. And during that process, I undertook a Black History course. It was life-changing for me. Wow. It was the first time that I had been exposed to the greatness of Black history, and it really gave me a solid foundation of what being a Black woman means and what being a sister means. And how that should alter and change my life. And it really did. I became really proud of my heritage. I developed something that I call racial esteem, which is something that a lot of Black people who haven't been exposed to the greatness of their history don't have. And in that racial esteem, I developed a desire to change my life. And you can say entrepreneurially as well. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, total sense. It's so inspiring to hear what you're saying, and I think many women, there's so many women, Black women, who have still the journey yet to be taken.
Yeah.
And I think about what really goes on inside of us.
Yeah.
Because where you spoke about you sat with yourself, you asked yourself, what did I do to attract? And like you said, it's not your fault, but there's a question that resides, that remains.
Yeah.
Had that not been your experience, that trauma, that situation, do you think you would have?
I don't know. I can't answer that. Because I don't know what else could have happened. I believe that life is an accumulation of circumstances and an accumulation of experiences. So what I can't say is what would have been. I can fantasize about it, I can romanticize it, but I don't know. What I can say is that I made the best out of a devastating situation. And I'm thankful that I took a lesson from that. I'm not thankful for it, but I'm thankful that I was able to take a lesson from it and apply that lesson in a positive way.
Yes, and so positive, so positive. Let's talk a little bit about your journey then, I suppose. After this, you mentioned the Black history, that racial esteem. I love that. I think I've heard you talk about that before, but not really in detail. Where do you think the lack of racial esteem comes from? Might be an obvious question, but still today, I don't think that is something that the Black community really fully embodies or really fully embraces for a number of reasons. On your journey, did you ever ask yourself that question and think,
where did the lack of it come from? It's multifaceted. We have to take into consideration that our experience as a people is unique. Nobody has gone through our journey. No other group or race of people have experienced the things that we have. Slavery, and people can say, oh, the slavery taught, don't blame slavery, but you have to recognize the devastation that it caused to a whole group and race of people, in that we were removed not only from our cultural land, but we were completely removed from the contributions that we made to this world, right? So if you talk to a lot of people who haven't taken the time to look at what our contributions were prior to the transatlantic slave movement, they would assume that our history starts with slavery. So if you take somebody's history and you start them as slaves, how then can they possibly have esteem and pride in that? The people that they came from and in that, right? And then the journey after the abolition of slavery has also, come with so many challenges as a people, and there's been this constant undercurrent of degrading of who we are from the wider society. And there's been so many challenges that we ourselves have had to overcome, that having that group race esteem, like, okay, this is the group that I'm from, you can understand why that would be challenging for some people. So I think when we take into account the impact that our journey has had on the individual, we need to understand that it's very, very complex and it's very multifaceted. So if we look at beauty, because that's obviously the industry in which I operate, Black women for years have been under a beauty standard that was so far removed from who we are authentically. And we were told that, you know, our features, our hair, our skin, our lips, our nose, our body type, everything about us is not aligned with the beauty standard and is wrong. So we went through years of trying to adjust and alter ourselves in order to conform to this beauty standard, which wasn't designed for us to fit into, right? So the role that I play now and what I think is really important to me is to ensure that Black women have a platform, Black women have a voice, Black women have a message that says, actually, you're amazing.
Yes.
Your skin is amazing. Your kinky hair is fantastic. Your features, your African features, they're beautiful. And I just want to constantly project that message. I want to be able to stop the process of Black women having to unlearn those damaging self-concepts and relearn something else. I just want them to know, right? And I say this about my daughter, from her earliest memory, from as far back as she can remember, I want her to know that everything about you fits the standard of beauty, because we're creating a new one, and beauty is diverse and we're all part of it, right? So that's what I'm trying to push. I kind of got on a little tangent, but that's what I'm trying to push with the business.
When you talk about racial esteem, I see it in what you're doing now. It's that pride of being who. I'll tell you honestly, like even today, I stopped perming my hair when I was 21. I didn't do it because there was a movement or anything. I just felt like something about this thing changing my hair texture doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop doing this, but I'm going to wear a weave.
Yes.
I'm going to still alter myself and look whatever I thought I looked like at the time, but I'm not going to put this thing on my head. And that was still part of the problem.
Yeah.
And now where I am now, I'm more in the place of, I like being versatile. I like changing it up.
Right.
But it's my choice because I like doing what I'm doing, not because of those issues.
Yeah, and I think that's something that needs to be echoed as well, very profoundly, in that versatility is one of the great qualities we have as Black women, right? Absolutely. We can change it up, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with if you want to wear a weave, if you want to rock your hair straight, blonde, whatever, do what makes you feel beautiful. But at the same token, do it because you want to change, not because you feel like I have to do this in order to be beautiful. Still know that your hair, the way it grows out of your head, however it grows out of your head, is just as beautiful as the weave you want to put on. And that's all that I want women to know. I'm not a natural hair Nancy. I'm not saying you have to have it like this, because you don't. But just know, I remember there was a time in my early 20s that I wouldn't come out my house. I would not come out of my house if my hair wasn't done. And when I say done, it wasn't straight, it didn't have a weave in, didn't have braids in, it didn't have something that took it away from how it naturally looked. I ain't coming out my house. And I know that I'm not alone in that. You know, as a child, I remember putting a towel on my head, a towel. And I'm in the mirror flicking the towel. And I know I'm not the only one.
I thought it was just me. No. And the towel was white. I don't know what was going on at the time. Now you said that, I've just had a flashback. Like, I did that.
Think about the psychology of that as well. As a child, you put a towel on and you imagine that towel being long flowing hair, and you think that's more beautiful than how you are. And that mindset is what, you know, a lot of women have grown with. And we need to change that.
We do need to change it. We do need to change it. And that, I think that's where I was going when I was saying, even this morning, I'd just taken out my hair a few days ago. I had it in a crochet style.
Yeah.
I've got it protective now. I don't know. I feel like I'm protecting the hair from me rather than anything else. But and I thought, oh, what am I going to do with it for today?
Yeah.
Because I haven't got time to have it done.
Yeah.
I haven't got time to do it myself. And I had to give myself a talking to, especially because I was coming into, obviously, interview you. And the talking to I had with myself was this narrative that I've had since I was young, that my hair isn't manageable. And how inconvenient it is in its natural state. Yeah. And I thought, I'm going to ask you about this. Yeah. Is that something you recognise? Yeah.
It's something that I see a lot. And I think language, the way we talk about our hair, has to change. So there's a lot of negative connotations, even though obviously there's been this massive movement with Black women, you know, moving back to wearing their hair in its natural state. You'll still find on platforms, or you'll still find during the courses of discussions that people talk about their hair in a negative way. So they'll say it's unmanageable, it's unruly, it's wild, it's dry, it's it's tough. Yeah. And all of those things can't possibly, when you ingest that on a subconscious level, what you're saying to yourself is really, I do not like my hair, because how can dry, tough, nappy, challenging hair be something that I enjoy? So one of the things that I really try and do in training, because I also train foster carers as well. I train foster carers and adoptive parents to be able to not only work with Afro textured hair for children that are in their care, but also how to ensure that the child feels proud about their hair. So one of the things that we talk about is how can we change the language? So instead of saying my hair's dry, say that I have very thirsty hair. And automatically it changes your attitude towards your hair. Because if you say it's dry, you're just going to accept this, something's dry, right? There's nothing I can do about it, right? If you say it's thirsty, then you know, actually, I have hair that I need to constantly hydrate and moisturize, and your attitude towards it changes. Rather than saying my hair is unmanageable, say, you know what, my hair just requires a little bit more time in the morning. My hair requires more dedication. My hair, you know, my hair's bougie. My hair wants love.
Just need some attention.
So, yeah, right? Yeah. So I think if we slowly start to look at how we can alter the language and our attitude towards our hair, then we won't still have that inherent inferiority when it comes to our hair, you know, because I think on the surface level we're changing that, but sometimes we just need to dig a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and it does take work, and it does take you spotting that and thinking, you know what, hold on, this isn't right.
No, it's not.
How can I change this?
But as I said, it came to my consciousness this morning because I was coming to meet you, and I'm thinking, well, if this wasn't happening and I'm not thinking about hair, would I have asked myself that question? Because I'm in my 30s now, and I'm just asking, like, why do I say I'm unmanageable? And I say I'm because I am my hair. And so I'm telling myself as a woman, a Black woman, that I'm not manageable. Yeah. And I think that's where the damage has been done. I have to think about where I heard that. Yeah. And for me, it wasn't on the television. No. It wasn't the adverts. No. Those were just women in commercials. It was at home. Yeah. And I find that fascinating. And also now knowing the start of how your brand started, I've heard you talk a little bit about, you know, wanting to have something for your daughter's hair. Yeah. I think that, how important do you think that conversation is to be having at home with our younger generation now to change that mindset?
It's crucially important, but I think if we're looking at how we teach our daughters, I think that's what the question is. How do we teach our daughters to have a positive attitude towards their hair? I think it definitely starts at home, but it starts with not only what we say, but what we do, you know? So again, if we have a child, like my daughter has very thick, like really thick, 4C hair that is very thirsty and requires a lot of time, right? So if I'm going in the morning and we're trying to rush through school and I'm crepesing off her head, like she's not going to enjoy that, right? And it's gonna give her these memories of, you know, having difficulties with her hair in the morning, and she's going to project out those feelings onto her hair. So I know, in order to try and reduce that as much as possible, I need to take the time out to make sure that I'm dedicating what I need to dedicate to her hair, so that I'm not rushing. So I'm giving it the time it needs, and that I'm helping it flourish. When I talk to her about her hair, I'm always using positive words, right? So I'll say, your hair's beautiful, you know, or Nylah, do you think you're presenting your hair in the best way it can be presented today, rather than saying your hair, you know, is a mess and you need to go and sort it out. And I think by using those phrases, and because she's grown up with it, like, you can't tell my daughter not about her hair. She absolutely loves it. She loves her hair. I watch her, you know, doing all these different styles with it, or trying to, and I can definitely see the difference in her as a child at 10 compared to my attitude towards my hair at 10. So I think definitely, as mothers and as grandmothers, we need to make a comforting ritual out of the process of doing hair, because it's a time of bonding as well. Like, I bond with my daughter when I'm doing her hair, so she remembers that as well. And that's a really important part of our heritage and our history as Black women, and something that's special to us. So yeah, we should do that.
I think that's amazing. I do remember my mum doing my hair, but I also remember the chop.
The comb.
I think everybody's had the chop. So I don't know about the bonding, but you know, I didn't love hair day, but I think if you were doing my hair, I'd be okay.
And I hated hair day. Listen, because I knew that I'm gonna be in all day getting chopped and, you know, with the comb. But now I'm changing that narrative.
Let's go back to a bit more to your entrepreneurial journey, because just talking to you, Kameese, we've never actually sat down and talked like this before. But I hear the nurturing motherliness in your voice and your tone, just your whole demeanor. And I always think to myself, who do people have around them? Because especially as an entrepreneur, this journey is not for the faint-hearted. And sometimes not everybody understands why we've chosen to have late nights, get early mornings, stress. You know, so the conversations sometimes fall on deaf ears. But what I found is having a good network is so important. How have you cultivated your circle as you've grown as a person to support you in getting to where you are now?
I would say that I didn't cultivate my close friends with the intention of surrounding myself with people who could support my entrepreneurial journey. I cultivated my friendships and my networks with people who I think can support my journey through life, right? So I'm very selective, extremely selective with who I allow around me and whose energy I allow to come into my space. So when I'm selecting friends, I'm definitely looking for certain qualities, and I wouldn't say competencies, but definitely certain qualities, demeanor, soulfulness, in that person that I feel then is somebody who can help me to grow in my authenticity. But also somebody who I enjoy sharing my existence with. So in being so intentional with the selection of those people, I've managed to accumulate a group of friends and family and sisters who have the same mindset that I have. I've got, sisters who Kadej is an amazing entrepreneur, and Jenna is an amazing entrepreneur. And we support each other. My partner is a fantastic entrepreneur, which is crazy in our house because we're both doing our different things.
You've mentioned females there, and I think that's it's interesting because I want to kind of understand how you see sisterhood now to where you were, say, in your teens, and how you viewed it then. How have you changed, or has it changed? Your view on sisterhood.
I didn't have a view of sisterhood in my teens. In my teens, I just wanted to have friends. But I think as teenagers, sometimes we don't understand what that word really means. Now I am looking for, or I'm not even looking for, as I found sisters. I found women who pray with me, who support me, and who I do the same for them, who we help raise each other's children, who we, give that kind of emotional support, caring to. And there's only, I only have 4, but I'm good with them.
It's quality.
That's enough. It's quality. And as you get older, and I think you develop in your maturity and your emotional intelligence, you definitely start to value certain qualities in people over anything else. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, it answers the question. It definitely answers the question. I think about sisterhood differently now. I'll be honest, I didn't value it before. Growing up, I'm just going to say as a woman, forget any of the intersectionalities of being female, but I feel, and it's been written about widely, that we as women are taught to compete with each other. So I see you and I think, she thinks she's cute, or it's kind of not, oh, there's my sister. It's there's my competition. And as I've gone on and my reflection, my journey, my sisters now of different races, nations, I look and I think, what on earth was that about? What are we doing? We don't realize how much more powerful we are
when we come together
than we are apart. What would be your reflections on that for yourself?
Okay. Slightly controversial. Foundationally, we are instinctively animals, in a sense, right? So there are certain things in human behavior that is not exclusive to any one type of group. So competition and competing is just part of human behavior. Have you read The Chimp Paradox?
I haven't. I know the book.
Read The Chimp Paradox. It's an amazing book.
I think I've heard you speak about
Love The Chimp Paradox.
Yes. Okay. Tell me what's the premise of the book?
The premise of The Chimp Paradox is that there are 3 states to awareness. There is your human, which is the analytical, logical part of the brain. There is the chimp, which is kind of just based on your instinct, prehistoric, if you want to say it, behavior of human beings. And then there is the computer, and the computer is what stores all of the information. And the premise of the book is that your chimp, which is based on ego and has a very egotistical way of behaving, thinks faster than the logical part of the brain, and reacts faster than the logical part of the brain. So there are certain behaviors such as competition that is more aligned with the chimp, and then your human, which is thinking logically and thinking with emotional intelligence, overrides that. So when I say that competition is part of human behavior, it's part of that egotistical chimp brain. What we have to start to do as women or as people is understanding actually that the chimp brain does exist. It's a very normal part of human behavior, but we have to override that with intelligence. We have to override that with logic, because we're no longer existing in the same state that we used to exist, right? So our behaviors now need to change because we no longer need to compete in order to survive. So I think that's what I'm saying. And unfortunately, sometimes we will encounter people from all walks of life that are still operating very much in a chimp state, as opposed to using their logical brain and you know, operating under emotional intelligence. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
As this is being filmed today, there is a program that is out called Love Island.
Okay, I haven't watched it.
No, but and that is all about the chimp.
Right.
Yeah,
you can see it. You would love the book. Honestly,
I'm
it's
going to read
one
it.
of my, because I'm an avid reader. I'm such a geek. I love reading, and that book is one of the best books that I've ever read. So I would definitely recommend that.
No, I will. But I think as you've spoken about it, it just took me straight there, and I was like, that's chimp behavior.
Yeah.
The girls walk that. There's chimps everywhere.
And when you like in life, you will be like bloody chimps
everywhere we go. Let's talk about that moment on Dragon's Den, because I don't watch the show, you know.
Have you not watched it?
No, I've watched that show,
Okay.
but I don't watch the show itself.
Right.
And I saw you post something, and I thought, oh my gosh, Kameese, you're going to be on. So that night specifically, I tuned in, and my husband was sat there, and I was sat here, and then I was like, and I think I wasn't the only person, because so many people were talking about it afterwards that don't know you.
Yeah.
The nation was
crying.
The
nation was crying. Yeah.
Those tears, they were just so relatable, because even though I wasn't standing there, or many people weren't standing in front of, you know, four or five investors, the tears that I saw you cry were
ugly tears. No, they weren't ugly.
They were tears of, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
I just need
It was
you.
relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Tell me about that moment. What was going through your head?
The tears. Because up until that point, obviously, I had all of the men drop out. And I remember standing there thinking, okay, this is going to happen again. They're going to tell me no. And the reason why I say again is it's not the first time that I'd gone through the process of trying to secure investment for the brand. And what I had constantly been told, or the feedback I'd constantly received, was the brand is fantastic. We love the brand. We love the story. We love the product. We definitely see what you're trying to do, but I don't understand the market. We don't understand the buyers, and your turnover is so low. And it was a situation, it's like, okay, the cart before the horse. How can I possibly generate any significant amount of revenue without having the working capital needed to be able to market the brand so that I can generate the revenue? So when they were telling me no, I just remember feeling a little bit deflated and defeated, and trying to hold it together, because there's a chance that this can be viewed to the nation. So then when Sarah, who is amazing, started to talk positively about the brand, and when she said she wanted to invest, it was a relief, because I know that with that investment, I am going to achieve what I set out to achieve. I know it. So it was almost also that she had put the petrol that I needed in the car. You know, I described my business and myself as a high performance car that was sitting there without petrol. And I just needed somebody to put fuel in my tank, because I'm trying to push this thing myself up a hill and I'm not going anywhere. So the moment she said yes was like, okay, you got fuel in your tank, you can go. And that's when the tears came out.
The relief.
Yeah, the relief.
The relief. You mentioned earlier about having dealt a lot with rejection when you were younger and how that played into how you felt growing up. In that moment when everyone was bowing out slowly, did any of those feelings arise, or did the learning kick in?
I didn't feel it was a rejection of me because their feedback was positive.
Yes.
I was standing there for a couple of hours, close to a couple of hours.
Wow.
You guys see 15 minutes. I was in there for a long time. And they were grilling me. They are not called dragons for no reason, right? They were hardcore. But everything they asked me, I had a response. I'd done my research. I knew my market. I knew my product. So their feedback on me as an individual was really positive. It was just, I'm not confident because your turnover. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, how me if you make money when we don't have no money? You know, like, So I'm like, Sarah definitely, her investment in the business has given me the starting point.
What she said was she was buying you.
She was investing in me.
She was investing in you.
She believed in me.
And she believed in you. And I think everybody believed in you. Like I was like, just give it the money. You know, it was that feeling of anyone could see that that's all you needed. That was all you needed. So I'm so pleased
Thank you.
that you got it. And you know, how's your relationship with Sarah now?
Sarah is a very busy woman.
Yes. Imagine.
But she is incredible, incredibly supportive. I think people need to understand they don't come in and run your business. I'm running my business. I'm definitely the one generating all the ideas, but any support that I need, I can tap into a team of experts to give me what I'm asking for. And that's been phenomenal.
Speaking of moving the business forward, where do you want it to go? Because this remit, this area now of natural hair has got so many more players in the.
There are players in the game. There are players in the game.
UK players, I don't know, but it has so much potential.
Yeah.
How do you see?
I mean, there are players in the game, but there are also a lot of products in the market that I think are questionable, and I think the reason why those products have been placed on the market is about financial gain as opposed to providing women with textured hair with a quality product. So the fact that there are other players in the market doesn't concern me because I know that I'm providing a quality product. The reason why we took 10 years from the process of concept was because the formulation process took me several years. I was very meticulous and very thorough in formulating my products. I worked in partnership with an amazing cosmetic scientist who is also a trichologist. So we really broke down, Afro textured hair, understanding it on a structural level, understanding what textured hair's needs are, why it's different, what it requires, and what raw materials are available on the market that we can start to use to meet those needs. Not only how do they work in isolation, but how do they work in synergy in a formulation. So these are the things we had taken into consideration. What I also realized was that there's a lot of the products on the market that don't include the advancements in ingredient technology that are available on the market now.
Okay, explain that to me.
So
advancements in
ingredient technology. Okay. So as you know, technology is ever-changing and ever-expanding in so many facets of life and so many markets, but it's also the same in the beauty market.
Right.
And you have, ingredient engineering or discovering of new ingredients and reworking them in order for them to have a particular function. So they're plant-based, but they've been designed to function in a particular way. So we use low molecular weight proteins in our formulation. For example, one of the lowest molecular weights you can find, but also has the most complex amino acid profile, which means that it's able to adhere to the hair, but also bind to water and bring water into the cortex of the hair to hydrate afro hair from the inside out, right? Okay. So these are the types of things that we are taking into consideration. So when people say there are other players on the market, that's cool, but there ain't nobody like me, right? And then also I want to be a solution-focused brand. So I'm not just looking at what products have the most marketing behind its efficacy. You know, like castor oil is going to grow your hair. Castor oil ain't going to grow your hair, right? I don't care how much marketing there is behind it. It's not going to do that. So what is actually going to grow your hair? What is going to encourage stem cell production? What is going to prolong the anagen phase of the hair growth cycle? What is going to interrupt DHT and stop excess shedding and hair fall? Those are the things I'm looking at. Those are the ingredients I'm investigating, and those are the things that I'm bringing to market. So I am passionate about resolving some of the challenges that we have. One of them is hair loss. Yes. Black women experience hair loss at a rate of 1 in 2, where the wider community it's 1 in 4. So already you can see that we experience hair loss at a much higher rate. And that is because of our styling choices, but also genetic factors. However, there isn't a product on the market at the moment that has been designed to take in the needs of afro hair, the way it grows, and what it needs once it's protruded from the scalp. So that's something that I'm bringing to market in a couple of weeks. So I'm always looking at not what the trends are, but what are the needs? How can I meet those needs? And then how can I bring that to market? And I think that's what sets me apart. World domination is definitely on the agenda. I want my products to be available everywhere. I've got my sights set on a couple of markets. I'm just dominating here as much as I can, because there are some amazing brands, amazing Black-owned brands, and I don't see them as my competition. I see them as another choice. I see them as another option, and I'm so proud of those women for creating something for the market as well, because we should have our hand in the pie in this space, right? But there's room for me too. There's room for me too.
Absolutely. And when I asked that question, it wasn't because I was thinking, there's absolutely, I just want to know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I look at you and you mean business.
I mean to do as much as I can.
And it's being done. And I know you're 10 years in. Yeah. But does it almost feel like the journey's just starting?
It's just starting, babes. Like, every day I'm like, how much money I made today? You know, how am I going to reinvest this? And, you know, this is coming from, I remember there was a time where I was like, when I first got my first shipment, I was like, how am I going to sell this, man? You know, I'd put so much effort and I'd concentrated so much on getting the products here. And I put all my money into it and I had nothing. And then when they finally came, I was like, I just thought about how I'm going to market this. That would, And then there was a process of learning again. But I'm thankful with this journey. I'm definitely learning and I'm definitely growing, and I'm enjoying that process too.
I obviously can't see the future, but I can definitely see how big this is going to be and how great you are, and
God willing,
continue to grow on to be. And I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so literally sitting here just like, yes. And, you know, some of the words you're using to describe the formulas and stuff like that, I'm not going to know, because that's not my, you know, that's but I can trust the brand, because you're there. You're not just passionate about racial esteem or whatever, but it's actually, this is for us. This is really working. And I think that's what, coupled with, you know, everything else, that's what just makes it great.
It's my contribution to the Black beauty discussion. It's my way of saying, like, you guys are amazing. And I think so. And I want you to think so too.
Your daughter.
Yeah.
This all started with her hair, didn't it?
Yes.
And
she had eczema.
She had eczema.
Yeah.
And you've talked about that in your pitch, and you talked about that extensively. Do you talk with her now when she sees this and what's happening? Her name's on this project. Does she talk about how she feels? Or?
She's just starting to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's nice. You know.
And thinking of that concept of legacy.
Yes.
What we leave behind, you know, whether it's financial, our family name, whatever it might be. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind for your children and then for the wider community?
That is such a deep question. I think the legacy that I want to leave behind is you are capable of whatever it is you put your mind to. Wherever you put your energy, whatever you focus on, that's what you will achieve. You're capable of growth. You're capable of magnificence. To be fearless, to overcome, to be resilient, to be humble. I'd like to think about that. I think I'm going to write something down properly. That's really given me something to concentrate on.
This show is called The Social Corner. And it's all about, as I said, speaking to people like yourself who have really carved out their social landscape, their space in the world, their corner in the world. And as you've mentioned, yours is just getting started.
Yeah.
But not just Nylah now, but the conversation that you have joined. You are curating and you are also nurturing in that space. Where would you ideally like to see that in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years or sooner, I want for women with textured hair to experience the freedom socially and personally of just enjoying their hair the way it grows out their head. I don't want it to be a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's I'm trying to think of the way to say this, but I think our hair has experienced so much discrimination and so much challenges over the years, and we're now starting to have those conversations to make those changes. But I want it to get to the point where it's just seen as the norm.
So the conversation.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got over the hurdles, we've got over the discrimination, we've got over the microaggressions, we've got over it being a topic and a subject of fascination. And we're just at the point where we can just be.
And I'm pretty sure with you in the mix. Kameese, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
Pleasure.
Thank you.